What's going on, guys? Gomes here back again on another MLB The Show 18 Diamond Dynasty video, and today we are going to be talking about and creating our gameplay wish list for MLB The Show 19. Now, once again, I've already done a Diamond Dynasty one. Make sure to check that one out if you guys have not yet. And the reason why I'm doing it so early, some might say, even though it's halfway through the game cycle, is right now is when the developers are looking at new stuff and looking at ideas to implement into the next game, not like 2-3 months before when most people do their wish list. So that's really just counterproductive. It doesn't really do anything because there's nothing really they can add in like the final 2 months that is major that somebody would put in a wish list. So that just doesn't really make any sense. Now, if you guys are content creators or anybody in general, if you guys have ideas, get them out now. But as always with these types of videos, if you guys do have any thoughts and opinions, I would love to hear them down below in the comments section. But I have a lot of points I don't want to get into this video, so let's get into it. Alright, so I will be having some gameplay going on in the background, and I will be getting mollywopped, as you guys will see if you pay attention. But hey, I'm clearly not trying. I'm just trying to gather clips for this video, so don't judge me. But getting into these topics now, I have clips for a lot of them, but not all of them. And to be fair, a lot of them you don't need clips. If you played this game, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And the first one is no exception. We're talking about up the middles. Basically, you hit the ball up right through the middle. And if you go back to the fundamentals of baseball, back when you were being taught baseball, the ideal hit is striking it right back up through the middle. That's what you want to try to do. Obviously, in this game, you try to hit home runs, and a lot of times you do hit more home runs than hit line drives through the middle, but you know, the ideal base hit is striking it right through the middle. And a lot of times in this game, the pitcher forms as a magnet, and it knocks everything down. There's actually an invisible pitcher wall. Basically, think of it as a hitbox. Think of the pitcher on the mound, and there's invisible walls around it. And if the ball hits that, it's going to go in high, unrealistic velocities into a different direction to an infielder, and you're usually going to get out. I swear 6-7 times out of 10, if you hit the ball right up through the middle, that's gonna happen. And the most frustrating thing is usually you're right on the ball when this happens. So even if you don't get out, it's just cheap. It really is just cheap, and it's a big reason why contact hitters just are not really that usable in MLB The Show 18. Of course, there's also the fact that I mean, if you square up a ball with the contact hitter, it usually doesn't go anywhere. So that has a play in it too, for sure. But another reason is this, because if you hit it right back up the middle, like I said, 6-7 times out of 10, it's probably getting knocked down. Now, you can still get safe in some of those times, but I'd say if that happens, it's like a 50-50 chance, if not even a little bit more likely that you're going to get thrown out. So it's really, really frustrating, and in my opinion, it has to go. It cannot be in MLB The Show 19. It's been in games in the past, but MLB The Show 18 has been its most prevalence. So this, in my opinion, is really one that they need to make damn sure that they get rid of and fix coming into the next game. Next, strictly, let's just talk about animations. Animations, they did clean up a lot in MLB The Show 18. If you remember from last year, they were terrible. They were really, really bad, and by all means, they're not necessarily great. They are definitely not great in this game either, but they have gotten a lot better. But really, I'm going to be talking about animations and sense of urgency, and I will have a couple clips that I will be throwing up on the screen, so make sure to make sure to actually look at those in case you're just treating this as a podcast right now. Treat it as a visual podcast, I guess. But starting with animations, there's still a lot of problems with animations, where a lot of times with corner infielders, I think that's really a problem, where even if you have a good defensive rating third baseman or a first baseman, and this will tie into another point I have later on, fielding stats actually matter. You know, they just get a terrible animation, and even if you've ever played baseball, even if you only played high school or, you know, little league, you would know that it's just a terrible decision to make, because they try to do stops and they try to like slide on their back or something stupid like that wouldn't make any sense, when the ideal thing you want to do, if nothing else, is just knock the ball down, prevent it from going into the outfield, because in a lot of these cases it will stretch for a double. So if you have a Victor Robles who hits the ball down the line, and your third baseman gets an access to a terrible animation like that, where they could easily knock it down, but they try to, and a lot of times it happens with Nolan Arenado for me. He'll try to do this dumb sliding animation, it goes past him, and it's sometimes an easy double for Victor Robles, when not only could he possibly been out, but definitely should not have gotten extra bases. So that's a big issue. There's still problems with double plays. You know, of course, your middle infielders, they cleaned that up a lot, and of course, a lot of that had to do with sense of urgency, because a lot of times your second baseman would get the ball and would just kind of lollygag and, you know, take his time when you easily could have gotten the double play. And that's kind of why your shortstop or second baseman now fires the ball over to first. If you ever watch that, they really throw at high velocities, simply because they still have not completely fixed the animations and sense of urgency to your middle infielders of making the flip over to second to turn the double play. So that has to be fixed. Another really important thing, also, outfielders jogging to the ball, unacceptable. You cannot have that. It doesn't make any sense. I think they put it in the patch notes 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 times in this game, and it still is not fixed. I still have issues with it. That's unacceptable. The fact that you are moving and there's not a sprint button, and I don't think really needs to be in this kind of game. And your outfielder just jogs to the ball. Even if he has like 75, 80 speed, it doesn't really matter what speed he has. He should consistently run at the same pace. He would jog to the ball and take his damn sweet time. So once again, has to be fixed for MLB The Show 19. Moving on to defensive attributes in this game, they tried pretty hard to make them actually matter and have a purpose this year. And I do think it's better than previous years, but it is still not up to par. Whereas if you have like a Brooks Robinson player, Brooks Robinson is one of the best defensive third basemen you can have in the game, but his hitting isn't that good, and nobody uses him for that reason, just because defensive stats don't really matter that much in this game, and they need to find a way to do it. And I'll get into another point later on a way that I think it can be fixed, and I think they should implement regardless, and I'm surprised it hasn't been implemented yet. But there is many things that they still have to work on here, because like I'll have situations where I see people using Edwin Encarnacion at third base, and they're doing fine. And also I believe second base, you can put anybody at second base, and besides double plays when they're making the transition, the turnover to first, there's really no issues. Like, they will field balls the same way as anybody else. So you can put a first baseman there, you can put a third baseman there, you can put an outfielder there. It doesn't really matter their secondary position, they can still get away with it, and that's a problem. And it's to the point where, like, I'll have somebody, you know, basically the main issue with this is nobody really uses the good defensive cards. Like, if you look at Andrelton Simmons, he has some of the best defense in the game, and you still have problems with him defensively. That's the amazing thing. I'll pull up a clip right now of Manny Machado. He has 92 fielding. I was using him in a game, and the ball just goes out of his glove, a routine ground ball. I did still get the out, of course, but that doesn't matter. That animation should not happen. I mean, that shouldn't happen to a guy with 75 fielding, let alone 92. Manny Machado, one of the best defensive shortstops, not only in the MLB, but in MLB The Show 18. Should not happen. And like I said, just in general, like, defensive stats, I really feel they just don't matter. And like I said, I'll get into that in a little bit, but like, outfielders, anybody can make diving catches. It doesn't matter. Like, anybody can do it, no matter your fielding, no matter your reaction, anything. It's no different. You get access to the same animation. So one thing I think they could do is try to put into a kind of like a threshold system, where if you get so much fielding, if you have 80 fielding, you get access to specific animations that a guy with 70 fielding would not get, and the same thing with 90 fielding. So just to make them have better animations, I would just make it, you know, faster and quicker transitions to actually give you a reason to want to use these good defensive rating cards, opposed to just some average fielding card, you know? Alright, now let's move on to hitting, and if you guys want to see specific examples of this, I'll leave a link down below to Cardinal Bird 5's video. I'm sure you guys all know him. I would strongly recommend you guys go and watch this video, because it will explain pretty much everything visually that I'm trying to audioly, or however the hell you would call it, explain to you guys. But basically, let's talk about the PCI. The PCI still moves on its own, which is crazy. You can have the PCI put in one spot, and if you watch this video, and I might have a clip on the screen right now, I'm not too sure, don't judge me if I can't, but basically, you know, where your PCI puts, where you put it at the end, it actually moves, and you can see that in the feedback after the fact, and that's what registers, not the one you had first, but the one in the feedback. So even if you're right on the ball, usually it tends to move upwards a lot of the times. So instead, when you should be hitting line drives to the gap or possibly even home runs, you're basically chopping it to the ground. And that's why there's so many ground balls in this game. And I hope that's not intentional. I hope it's just something that they have trouble fixing. Of course, like with things like this is not an easy fix. So when it happened at the beginning of the game, I knew it was not gonna just get fixed, you know, over a patch or two, because things don't work like this. Things take a lot of time, especially in this in a small company like this. It will take a lot of time. It's gonna take an entire new game for this to get fixed. Hopefully, it might even take longer than that, but it's just simply inexcusable. You cannot have something like this, and it's gonna lead into my next point, is swing results. There are too many damn times, and of course last time, you know, just late be great. That was the motto for MLB The Show 17. This year it's just early, and the thing about that is, once again, it cannot happen. The fact that there's actually proof, like if you are just early this year, usually you are going to hit it harder. And I, like, a lot of times, probably 6 out of 10 home runs that I give up to somebody is just early or early. And the fact that it gives you almost like a power boost when you're not on the ball on the right timing, that's ridiculous. In sense of Madden or 2K. For example, imagine if in 2K, if you released your shot meter late and it gave you a boost opposed to having a perfect release. That's the same thing here. Or imagine in Madden, if you're kicking a field goal. Imagine if being like early, like quite a bit early on your field goal attempt, you know, with the kick meter, opposed to being right on. Imagine if being early gave you an advantage. Does that make any sense? Hell no, that makes absolutely zero sense. So why does it make sense that to be early, or even last year to be late on the ball instead of having perfect timing, is going to give you an advantage or a boost? This is a video game where timing and skill should matter. That's the important thing that you guys have to remember here. This is not necessarily real life, although it is a simulation, and they do want to represent realistic baseball. But the way you do that in a video game to actually want people to play is to have a skills gap. People should not be, you know, getting advantages for being early or late on the ball opposed to being just on the ball. That makes absolutely no sense. I'll get into one more point. This video is already getting a little bit longer than I wanted it to be, and that's basically having more attributes on cards. I've talked about this before. I think hitters have about 10 attributes that matter and pitchers have about 8. And I know it's not Madden, I know it's not 2K, and you don't necessarily have athletic stats that really, you know, like strength and stuff like that. So I know it's not as easy to implement attributes, but it leads to all the cards pretty much playing the same, you know, except for pitchers, their pitch type, and for hitters, you know, their batting stance. Otherwise, they play pretty much the same. So I jotted down a couple stats or attributes, whatever you want to call them, that they can implement to make players feel differently and also to make defensive stats and other things matter in the game. One is acceleration. It adds into the speed category, of course. Basically, this would make it so, you know, one guy with 99 acceleration opposed to 75, they're going to get out of the box quicker. When they're stealing a base, they're going to get there quicker. And even if you want to have it like rounding a base, you can do that as well. Just to, you know, really separate the fastest of the fast, because, you know, only 99 speed, there's really not a lot of room, because a guy, you know, a more agile, smaller guy, maybe like D. Gordon compared to Mike Trout, who definitely is fast, but D. Gordon is a lot smaller, he's going to be able to turn quicker, and he's just a little bit more agile, so you can really represent that. Next is spec catch. Like I said earlier, spectacular catch. It just basically makes you be able to make the best catches in the game, because right now, and I'll show you guys some clips, Dante Bichette, he has like 58 fielding. I was just making diving catches out of my ass. Like, it was insane. I was 2 for 2, and I'll show you guys even a few more. Jose Ramirez, you know, one try, I just, you know, got to the ball. And that can't happen. Like, I know personally I'm really good at this stuff. I'm really good at robbing home runs and getting and diving to balls. I'm good at timing it. But it should not be that way where it's automatic for guys with low fielding. Can't happen. Next is sliding. Pretty self-explanatory. If you have high sliding attribute, you'll get access to better slides, so you can kind of maneuver around the tag, and it will give you, you know, more reason to use guys like Josh Harrison, who is one of the best, you know, sliders and base stealers, even though he's not the fastest. Next is fixing the contact stat. Contact should not be being able to make contact with the ball. In my in my opinion, that should be more like plate vision. Contact is what you can make to actually make the contact hitters worthy. And basically that means hitting the ball hard, but not necessarily for home runs. So that means hitting it into the 5.5 hole, hitting it hard up the middle. That is how contact should be represented in my opinion. Next is scooping. First baseman, unless if you have like a yellow throw or if you have somebody that doesn't play first base, if it's in the dirt, they will get it every single time. So make a little bit of a change of an attribute, and it's not something major because you should be able to make most scoops, but if a guy has 90 scooping opposed to like 60, if you have 60 scooping, you can miss one, which does make sense because there are some guys who don't make every scoop, even the best of the best. Next is jumping. Unathletic guys make too high of jumps in this game, and it really doesn't make sense because if you look at a guy like Yoenis Cespedes who has good fielding, and then a guy like Kevin Kiermaier who's obviously a lot more athletic than Yoenis Cespedes, they get basically the same animations for jumping. Who the hell do you think should jump higher? Or even think of Billy Hamilton in that case. And finally is tagging. I'll put up one final clip right here. This is Nolan Arenado. Once again, no sense of urgency. Easily could have got to him, and he has some great fielding. Put a separate stat in for tagging, and I think it will be a lot better. But that is going to wrap up the video. Like I said, if you guys do have your own thoughts and opinions on stuff they could add into MLB The Show 19 gameplay-wise, make sure to put them down below in the comments. Also, top right-hand corner, I will have my Diamond Dynasty wish list as well. If you guys did enjoy the video, make sure to like, down below. I love all you guys to death. I hope you guys have a great rest of the day. And there it guys comes out. Yay!